underneath the most photographed building on the planet, beneath the manicured lawns and the rose garden and the tourists pressing their faces against the iron fence, there is a sealed room the United States government has spent more than 80 years refusing to fully describe. They call it the Presidential Emergency Operations Center. Most people just call it the bunker. It is where the most powerful person in the world is supposed to go when everything else has failed. And here is the strange part. The people who study these things for a living, the engineers, the continuity of government planners, the Cold War historians, do not picture a fortress when they think about it. They picture something closer to a very nice basement conference room with excellent telephone service. Today we are going underground into the most famous shelter in America to find out what is actually down there, why it exists, and why the experts who know it best cannot quite keep a straight face when you call it doomsday proof. Let us start with the truth about what the bunker actually is, because it is almost nothing like the movies. The Presidential Emergency Operations Center sits beneath the east wing of the White House. It was not carved out for a nuclear apocalypse. It was built during the Second World War in the anxious months after the attack on Pearl Harbor, when the fear was enemy aircraft dropping conventional bombs on Washington. President Franklin Roosevelt's staff wanted somewhere hardened the president could be moved to during an air raid, and the East Wing was quietly expanded in 1942 to conceal it. That origin matters more than almost anything else in this story, because nearly everything people get wrong about the bunker comes from forgetting one simple fact. It was designed to survive falling bombs from propeller planes, not the weapons that came after. For its first decades, it barely existed in the public mind at all. There was no plaque, no tour, no mention in the official literature. It was a hardened secret tucked under a wing of the most watched house in the world, waiting for a war that, thankfully, never reached the front lawn. If you think that sounds underwhelming for the leader of the free world, hit subscribe and stick around, because the room under the East Wing is not even the real secret. The structure the government actually built to outlive the end of the world is hidden somewhere else entirely, and we are going there before this video is over. For most of its life, the room stayed invisible. It was a rumor, a line in a memoir, a place staffers were told never to mention. Then came the morning of September 11th, 2001, and the bunker walked straight out of the shadows and into history. As hijacked planes struck New York and the Pentagon, Secret Service agents grabbed Vice President Dick Cheney, all but lifted him off his feet, and rushed him down into the Presidential Emergency Operations Center. From that room, surrounded by aides and a television feed and a bank of secure phones, the government tried to run a nation under attack. The photographs that later emerged showed something almost disappointingly ordinary. A low ceiling, a conference table, people in suits looking exhausted under fluorescent light. This was the fortress. This was the secret heart of American survival. And it looked like a slightly cramped office park after hours. It surfaced again in the summer of 2020, when protests filled the streets of Washington and the president was briefly taken down to the same complex. Once again, the most secret room in the country became a headline, and once again, people were surprised by how unglamorous the reality actually was. Now, if you want a real plan, instead of panic buying when the next crisis hits, scan the QR code and take a look at Accessible Underground. It's a 30-day step-by-step guide for ordinary people like us, covering water, food, staying in touch when the lines go down, and the basics of underground living. The tips inside pay for the guide in the first week. It's a PDF you can save to your phone or print and keep on the shelf, ready whenever you need it. Links in the description. Now we get to the part the experts find quietly hilarious, and to understand the joke, you have to understand what the bunker was never built to do. Here's the problem. The Presidential Emergency Operations Center is shallow. It sits relatively close to the surface, under a building that any visitor can photograph from the sidewalk. It was hardened against the bombs of the 1940s, and the math of survival changed completely the day the first nuclear weapon detonated. A modern warhead aimed at Washington would not just collapse the East Wing, it would erase the entire area around it. Engineers who study blast effects will tell you politely that a shelter a few stories under a famous, fixed, perfectly mapped target is not a place you survive a direct strike. It is a place you survive a bad afternoon, not the apocalypse the brochures of our imagination keep promising. The bunker is excellent at exactly one thing. It buys time. It is a hardened command post where the president can keep talking to the military for a short window while something far more important happens above it and beyond it. Evacuation. Because the real plan, the one the experts respect, was never about hiding under the lawn. The bunker under the White House is the first link in a chain, not the destination. The actual doomsday architecture of the United States sits far from the Capitol. There is Mount Weather, a hollowed-out mountain in the Virginia countryside built to house the civilian government. There is Raven Rock, a complex burrowed into a mountain on the Pennsylvania and Maryland border. Sometimes called the underground Pentagon, designed to keep military command running when Washington is gone. And there is the strangest fortress of all, one that does not sit in the ground at all. It flies. A fleet of specially modified aircraft known as the National Airborne Operations Center, nicknamed Night Watch, sits ready around the clock so that the president can command a war from the sky, untouchable by any single target on a map. Think about how strange that is. After all the concrete, all the steel, all the money poured into holes in the ground, the safest place the president can be during the end of the world is 30,000 feet in the air, moving constantly, impossible to pin to a coordinate. That is the punchline. The most survivable bunker in the American arsenal is not a bunker at all. It is an airplane. So when survival engineers look at the famous room beneath the White House, they are not laughing at it for being weak. They are laughing at us, at the public, for ever believing it was supposed to be the last line of defense. It is a green room. It is a waiting area with the best phones on earth. Its entire job is to keep the president alive and connected for the few minutes it takes to get him out and into something that can actually run. And then there is the mystery that keeps the legend alive. Between roughly 2010 and 2012, an enormous secretive construction project tore open the ground beside the West Wing. Officially, it was described as an upgrade to aging air conditioning and utility systems, which is the most boring possible cover story for excavating a multi-story pit next to the most secure residence in the world and trucking the dirt away under tarps. For years, cranes and dump trucks worked behind high fences while the government insisted, with a perfectly straight face, that this was all about ventilation. Nobody outside a very small circle knows for certain what was added down there, and that uncertainty is the whole reason the bunker myth never dies. The room from the photographs may be modest, but the dirt around it has been moving for a very long time, and the government has never once told us why. Before we wrap up, one last reminder. The Accessible Underground Guide in the QR code walks you through a simple 30-day plan, covering topics like water, food, staying in touch with family, and the basics that turn a hole in the ground into a safe place you and your loved ones can actually live in. Links in the description. In the end, the bunker beneath the White House is a kind of mirror. We want it to be a fortress because the alternative is admitting that no amount of concrete makes a single building safe from the worst thing humans ever invented. The experts are not cynics. They simply understand the trade the planners made decades ago. Mass and depth could never win at a fixed, famous address, so the real strategy became speed and distance. Get the president out. Get him to the mountain or the mountainside or the plain. The little room under the East Wing was never the last stand. It was the starting gun, and maybe that is the most honest lesson hiding under the most famous lawn in America. The strongest shelter is not the one you hide inside forever. It is the one that buys you just enough time to reach somewhere safer. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, consider subscribing so you do not miss future videos.